this week, the country was stunned when Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland tendered her resignation, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saw renewed calls for him to resign, including from within his own caucus. Amid the political turmoil, the U.S. dollar has rallied again, and the Canadian dollar has been pushed down to less than 70 cents U.S. There it is right now at 69.8 cents U.S. Our next guest says there could be opportunity in the Canadian dollar amid all of this. Let's bring in Thierry Wizman, global FX strategist at Macquarie Group. Thierry, thanks a lot for joining us. I've read some of your commentary, and you say that a conservative-led government emerging via early elections, my emphasis on those two words, early elections, could be positive for the Canadian dollar, specifically halting this rally in the U.S. dollar that we've seen versus the loonie. How important is the early elections part of that call?
Well, look, if you had a conservative-led government in Canada, I think it would help the loonie regardless of the timing of that election. So as long as that conservative-led government put in policies that were pro-growth, pro-market, eventually I think the loonie would recover. But the nice thing about having that early election come earlier, say in April or May, is that it gives effectively a background or backdrop for negotiations between the U.S. and Canada to start on a more friendly footing in regard to the threats from the U.S. to begin import tariffs and the demands of the U.S. to have concessions from Canada on a few issues, including the border security. The earlier that those negotiations start, and the presumption that they start between two friendly governments as opposed to lukewarm relation governments, would be a good thing. I think that President Trump here would look favorably upon a conservative-led government, Canada, especially one that shared his ideology with respect to a lot of social and economic issues in both countries.
What happens to the exchange rate, specifically the Canadian dollar, if Trudeau rides this out and we do not have elections until the fall of next year?
Well, of course, then it depends on whether the U.S. is going to be successful in imposing any of these import tariffs and whether or not the two leaders can see eye to eye on the demands that the U.S. is making of the Canadians. But, it's very possible that Trump will continue to use this so-called megaphone diplomacy, continue to pound the table on the issues that pertain, or his worries that pertain to the U.S., to the point where we may not get an early resolution at all under a situation where Prime Minister Trudeau stays in office. But I think that in and of itself would be a negative for the market. Markets tend to like to see resolution of outstanding issues. So this is about a resolution coming earlier rather than later if we were to get a change of government in Canada.
How much do you think we know about Pierre Poilievre's view on important economic matters? His message to the Canadian public for some time now has been a pretty blunt drumbeat. Get rid of the carbon tax, do something about bail reform on crime, a couple of other things that he pounds the table on. We have also heard that he is cool to the idea, somewhat resistant to the idea of meeting with business executives and bankers on Bay Street to talk to them about the state of the Canadian economy. How much do you think we know about his big picture views on important economic issues?
Yeah, well, one would have to scour his speeches and his editorializing over the last 2 or 3 years to get to build a picture, paint a picture. I think one thing you left out that I think would be that seems to suggest that he is very much in alignment with President-elect Trump is on the issue of deregulation and on the issue of privatization of state assets in Canada, in the transportation space, in the communication space, for example. I think these things point to the idea that he is ideologically aligned when it comes to business. I think the other area where he is going to be ideologically aligned with President-elect Trump is on reducing the size of government and the size of deficits generally. Keep in mind, this is about ideological alignment. That is the basis for a constructive dialogue, as opposed to two leaders who come at the issue from opposite sides of the ideological spectrum.
How was the news of Chrystia Freeland's resignation? What was the reaction in your world among FX traders and strategists when that news hit the screen?
Well, the immediate effect was to have the U.S. dollar get bid up quite aggressively. I think that traders and investors do not like to look at a sustained period of uncertainty, especially in politics. We've seen how that has affected the euro as it pertains to the German political situation and the French political situation. And now we have uncertainty about who will be in charge of Canada in the medium term. And even though the outcome might be positive, as I've just argued, traders tend to simply flatten positions, and to the extent that many of them might have been short the U.S. dollar against the Canadian dollar, it was an opportunity to flatten those positions that bid up the dollar, and the dollar, U.S. dollar was bid up and went, higher by almost 1% on the news. But we have to separate a forward-looking view, a view that transcends the immediacy of the headline, looks at the next 6 months and the opportunities that might come out of these headlines if, in fact, we have a change of government in Canada.
Terry, thank you very much for your insight. That was Thierry Wizman, global FX and rate strategist at Macquarie Group. Coming up, we'll digest the outlook